Welcome to Skip the Queue, a podcast for people working in or working with visitor attractions. I'm your host, Kelly Molson. Each episode, I speak with industry experts from the attractions world. In today's episode, I speak with Douglas Quinby, co-founder and CEO of Arival. Douglas and I chat through a few topics covering the economic outlook for 2023, the big shift in discovering new experiences, ticketing tech, and a little bit on dynamic pricing. If you like what you hear, you can subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, and all the usual channels by searching Skip the Queue. Douglas, thank you so much for joining me on the Skip the Queue podcast today. I'm so excited that you could come on.
Well, beyond thrilled to be here. Thanks so much for the invitation, Kelly.
Very, very welcome. As ever, we are going straight into our icebreakers. So, Doug, I would like to know, do you have any hidden talents that we should know about?
Hidden talents. Let's see. I actually was a music major in college, and I have a music degree and studied composition and piano. Haven't done much with that talent in some time, much to my wife's chagrin. She complains about it. And I get a little embarrassed about it. Like, we'll have friends over and she wants me to play the piano for everybody, and I get a little self-conscious about it. So that's actually one of my commitments to my wife is I'm going to get our piano tuned. I'm going to start practicing again, and I'm not going to be bashful about playing when we have people over or when she wants me to.
Oh, I think that is such a wonderful talent. I genuinely said to my husband a couple of weeks ago, if there was one thing that I could do, two things that I could do. One would be I'd really love to be good at languages, and then I would really love to learn to play the piano. So I think it's great to be able to do that. Do you not find it quite mindful as well when you play?
Well, I do, but and actually when we had our two boys, I made a deliberate effort of teaching them to play piano. And so for years, I would sit down every day, or maybe almost every day, 4 or 5 days a week, and make them practice. And we also hired a teacher to come in but a lot of stress with that, with forcing, two boys to play the piano and sit down every day. And I can tell you, it was not always mindful and peaceful. Anyone who's raising kids, right, will know, right? So I think when they turn 15, like, okay, if you want to go and do something else, that's fine. And I just, took a pause from the whole thing. So, but yes, I think as we get older, I would get back in, and there are moments when you can be mindful and just, relaxing and pleasant.
Right. Okay. All right. Next one. What is your ultimate guilty pleasure song?
A guilty pleasure song? Oh yeah, I know, but I don't know the name.
Are you going to sing it for us?
Oh goodness, what's the song? There's also that song by the Black Eyed Peas. I'm terrible with names.
I've got a feeling. That one. I've got a feeling.
So that's one. Like, sometimes I'll put that on with my boys in the car, and we'll totally jam out together, like we're dancing or on stage. But no, let me Okay, now that's important. This is an important question.
It is an important question. I genuinely thought that you were going to break out into song and do it that way, Doug. I thought that was where you were going with this. Well, you can if you want. Feel free.
Oh my goodness, gosh! It's also what happens when you get older. I just find
the suspense.
Hang on.
Now an easier final question for you. What is the one thing that you would like to do this year that you've never done before?
Well, this is going to be a kind of boring one, but I've had a pretty amazing career. I've been able to travel to so many different places and have so many amazing experiences. And in particular, working in what, we at Arival, we call the best part of travel, right? So tours, activities, and attractions, all of those things that travelers do when they get there. I've been beyond fortunate to have an opportunity to just meet so many amazing people whose whole lives are all about delivering amazing experiences to people. So I've done things like, when I was in Dubai at ATM, through an industry connection, we did a climb up a sand dune in Sharjah. And then when we came down, we had an ice bucket, an ice immersion experience. And so things like that. When I think about like bucket list stuff, I don't know, to me, that's not as important. My commitment this year is my 17-year-old is in his senior year in school, and he's going to be going to college in the fall. And I've had so much travel and devoted so much of my life to to my career and then starting Arival and building it over the past 5 years or keeping it afloat over the last two. And so now I'm actually committed to I'm not doing any travel other than what's absolutely essential until he goes to school. And I'm going to spend as much time as possible with him and make sure that he knows uh, as he goes off into the world how much his father is behind him and has his back.
That's a great answer to the question, Doug. And I think that is the most brilliant thing that you could be able to do right now. And I'm sure that he will very much appreciate that time with you as well.
Well, I hope so. That's nothing more important. Nothing more important.
Absolutely not. Right, Doug, it's time for your unpopular opinion. What have you prepared for us today?
Well, my unpopular opinion, I don't know if it's unpopular or not. You can tell me, but I'm continually amazed at how terrible so many attractions are at marketing to travelers and understanding the traveler psyche and understanding how travel distribution works. And it's completely different from the the how a kind of a local thinks about visiting an attraction or having an experience. And so how you find them, how you target them, how you get into their mindset. That's one piece. And then the other piece is also understanding travel distribution and the systems and how to optimize that. It's something that's dramatically overlooked. So here's just one example. In fact, we, one of the things that we do at Arival constantly is we pulse the industry on a variety of trends to get a sense of what's happening, especially over the past 2.5 years, which has been so crazy for all of us. Well, now I guess it's 3 years now, is it? Yeah, it's coming up on 3 years since the pandemic started. So just here's one example. In 2022, in a survey we had done of almost 400 attractions over the past year, 23% are not using a modern booking or ticketing system to manage their business. So I mean, just to me, that's I mean, it's incomprehensible. I have a hard time wrapping my head around it. I mean, think about it from like an airline perspective or a hotel perspective. Like imagine if 23% of airlines did not use a central reservation system. Or imagine if 23% of hotels did not have a property management system. I mean, travel wouldn't exist, right? The way it does today, it wouldn't even be possible. So I find it I find it interesting. I mean, it's a real challenge to the industry that, and it's very common, I think, across experiences. People get into this business or an attraction is started because it's based on a mission. They may have a cultural mission. It may be a not-for-profit. Or they may be passionate about, like, say, in the case of the tours world, they want to be out in the water, taking people on kayak tours or walking them up a mountain. But at the same time, to have a business to be able to deliver those experiences, to be able to advance the cultural mission, you want to have as many people come to your attraction as possible. You want to share that. And that requires an investment in the operation, in the business. It requires understanding who the customer is. But it's a natural thing of most businesses. You tend to be focused on your own product or your own thing, but you also have to shift and think about the orientation of the customer and where they are and what they're looking for. So that's a real I don't it's not really an unpopular I don't know if it's an unpopular opinion because it's just a fact. It's just a fact when I see how most attractions market their experience to travelers and the challenges that the travel industry has, for example, in accessing attraction ticket inventory. When I see that less than 1% of attractions worldwide engage in any kind of dynamic pricing, which is not just a tool to charge more money, it's actually a tool for things like optimizing the guest experience because you can more effectively disperse your customer demand over the course of a day or a week in order to make it a better experience for everybody. It's right. There's so much opportunity that's missed in the world of attractions.
I would love to know what listeners think about this. So as ever, if you want to feedback on Doug's unpopular opinion on our Twitter account, feel free. There's definitely a conversation. I mean, there's a whole podcast piece around your unpopular opinion, I think, there, Doug. We're going to touch on a couple of the subject matters from it today. But yeah, I think there's a whole piece around exploring that. I don't know how unpopular it is, because I would tend to agree with you. And I think, like you said, it is a fact. I think the attractions industry has moved on dramatically from a digital perspective in the last 3 years. So they were forced to move quicker. They were forced to innovate. They were forced to introduce things that they might have been thinking about doing them, but might have taken another 2 or 3 years to actually implement because they had to. But I think that some of those decisions and some of the things that they've implemented have been done in a quite rudimentary way, because there was a time element attached to it. You know, in the UK, we attractions couldn't open unless they could do pre-booked and timed tickets. Small attractions, I mean, all of a sudden you've got to have the infrastructure to be able to implement that. You've got to find the right booking system. You've got to be able to pay for those things for you to be able to open. So this
stuff is not rocket science. You know, we're not talking about, you know, no one needs to have expertise in or in artificial intelligence, or you don't need to. In fact, you know, a lot of the systems that are out there today, this is one of the most amazing things in the world of, say, in the tours and activities segment of the experiences industry, which has many more smaller businesses. You know, there's been an absolute revolution over the past decade. There has been literally dozens upon dozens of startups that have stepped into the market. They offer very simple, easy to use, you know, SaaS platforms. You can get your business up and running within a couple of days, if not less. You get your tickets loaded and you flip a switch and you can start selling that stuff directly through online travel agencies, through other resellers. You can set different rules and this is stuff where often there's not even an upfront cost. It's just your own internal resources. So there's been a dramatic change within the enterprise software side of the sector that has opened up, you know, all of these avenues to this industry. Now, of course, it's one thing if you're a small, you know, tour company and you do 5 or 6 departures, you know, a week, and you're a 1 or 2 person shop, and you're a visitor attraction, you know, with thousands or tens of thousands of guests a year, and you've got operations and you have a board, or you have, of course, there's a lot of other things to consider there as well, but there, you know, there's no reason for it. And again, I think for attractions, especially those that have a not-for-profit, you know, mission. I mean, some of the great, and even like there are some, even where I live in Atlanta, Georgia, there are some terrific and very small local museums that and places to visit that explore, you know, history of the South, and in small towns here outside of Atlanta, for example, or the Atlanta the City History Museum. But you know, accessing the content and discovering it as a consumer is hard. It's not easy, and there's just it's just a huge, you know, missed opportunity. Of course, there's a lot of, you know, the big attractions, the great ones. They do a great job, and there are many amazing. I want to be clear too. There are many incredible travel marketers within the world of attractions, right? So, and you all know who you are, and you're out there. So I just want to say, for those of you, like, this is not aimed at you, but it is aimed at, I think, the mid to long tail of amazing experience operators out there that could just benefit so much more, and not just benefit themselves commercially, but, you know, benefit people who haven't experienced their attraction, haven't experienced their, you know, their museum, or that little, you know, that special thing that they create that could delight so many more people.
Yeah, I agree. There's lots to unpick here.
Okay.
Let's go back to what you said. So in the UK, so 2022, we really focused a lot about staffing challenges and the rising cost of labour. That was a huge topic across the board. That's still a challenge. But in the UK especially, we have got currently a very high cost of living crisis. Utility costs have been driven up predominantly by the war against Ukraine. We have attractions that are reporting a rise of between 200 and 900% in their electricity, gas bills. So there's been a recent publication in the Guardian saying that rising costs have led to staff redundancies. They've curtailed open hours, and 9 out of 10 sites fear that they could close permanently. And that's in castles, museums, and theatres. That's really drastic. You know, that's the real bad end of what's going on at the moment. We've had things like train strikes in the UK, which are a necessary evil. I am personally, and for one, and I support the rail strikes, but they do have a huge impact, especially on theatres. People that are going into London suddenly can't get into London, or they have to drive into London, and it bumps the cost up for parking. All kinds of things going on. There's still very few visits from international travellers, although that's on the rise. But Asia is only just opening up the borders. So, you know, we still have a lot of attractions that are very heavily dependent on international tourism that are nowhere near back to the visitor numbers that they should be at. And just to throw into the mix, we know from speaking to many attractions that marketing budgets are looking to be cut this year because of the high cost of utilities being risen. So marketing budgets could be cut by about 15 to 20% in the UK. What does it look like, Doug, for you? So you're US based, but you travel a lot. You speak to a lot of US and international and European based attractions. Is it a similar story there? What's happening?
It's not actually. It's quite. Fortunes are quite mixed. I think the UK in particular and parts of Europe are being hit especially hard. In the United States, it's a very different picture. In fact, it's one of the most confusing. It's one of the most confusing times in terms of trying to forecast what the economy is going to do. Everyone is talking about recession. It seems like the Federal Reserve here is committed to putting the country into recession by tamping down inflation and raising interest rates. But at the same time, our federal government has they pushed through at the end of last year a $1.7 trillion spending package. And so it seems like we've got the Fed and the government kind of at odds in terms of where the economy should be going. We are seeing mass layoff. Well, mass layoffs is probably a strong word, but widespread layoffs in certain sectors like tech and in certain areas of the corporate world, an expectation that earnings are going to be depressed. And this is in the US, but I think also globally through the first half of this year. Yet at the same time, the labor market is extremely tight. There's a lot of demand. We just had our conference in Las Vegas in October, and for all the talk of recession, the hotels were full, the casinos were packed. We had a hard time getting restaurant reservations to feed the team during the event. So it's a very very confusing, a very confusing time. I think one of the things that I think every attraction needs to be thinking about, and honestly, it's not even an attraction. This is what I'm going to say is not. I think it applies to all industries, although I think in particular with regard to travel and to experiences, because there's still very clear demand for getting out and doing things. We're still very much in a kind of COVID hangover. We see from all of our consumer sentiment work that they are prioritizing getting out and doing things, being with the people they love, having experiences, whether it's local or it's travel. We measure this across a variety of ways, but just in a very simple way. 3 out of 5 kind of Gen Z and young millennials are clearly prioritizing experiences over stuff. I mean, that's where they're spending their money. That number actually jumps to almost 3 and 4 for Gen Z and millennials who are in that upper income bracket. So for us, that metric is a household income of 150,000 USD or up. And that's actually, for us, that's very important, and for all attractions and experience providers to think about, because there is we really have to put it very simply, a kind of bifurcated consumer landscape. I think of it as the haves and the have somes. So you have the lower middle income segment, and this applies to the US and Europe, where okay, they are being more directly affected by inflation, by rising cost of living, and a little bit by more the kind of recessionary impacts, which are a bit deeper in Europe than they are in the US. And so yes, their spend is going to be a bit muted around travel and around experiences, and they're going to be a bit more price sensitive. But you also have this upper income segment, which we see, despite everything that's happening in the world, I mean, the gas is on the pedal, like all the way down. Like, they're going for it. They intend to spend, do more. They want to travel more. They want to see more. And also, we've seen an extraordinary shift coming out of the pandemic, which I think it's almost, I think of it as like a post-COVID kind of convulsion period that we're in right now. So just to give you, and this is in a recent report that a research report on the experiences traveler and the global attractions traveler that we've published over the past couple of months, where just a dramatic shift in the demand for small group and private experiences, even around attractions. So as I've been covering this industry for many years, we've always seen it's been the iconic visitor attractions that have been the primary driver of tourism. I want to go to London and go to see the tower. I want to go to the National Gallery, or I'm going to Paris. I got to go to the Louvre. I've got to go to Musée d'Orsay, and so on and so forth. But well, not just increasingly, it's been a dramatic shift as travelers have come back. It's not just that I want to get a ticket to the Colosseum, but I want to have a private, or special small group experience with my friends and family. I'm going to book that tour that will include the ticket, but I want all the bells and whistles. Or yes, I want to go to the top of the the Edge in New York with my fiance or with my wife, but I don't just want to go to the top and have a look out. I want to do the champagne sunset experience, and I'm going to pay twice the price, and we're gonna linger there and have, like, that's the kind of extraordinary shift that we're seeing. So and I've been saying this like very clearly, one, for any experience operator or attraction, one, understand who your customers are. Are they more is it more, are your customers more price sensitive, or are they a little bit more, are they more in the kind of the haves, right? Or maybe or if you serve both, then how can you really think about the products that you offer in a way to get the most out of them, or to deliver the best? And so a really great example is that it's not just the ticket to the top, but it's the ticket to the top with the champagne experience at a special time of day. Or maybe it's offering a VIP behind the scenes experience, or a special meal, or something that just makes it a little bit more special. And there's just a real opportunity to sell more and to do more for that, for that right guest. And then I think the one last thought is for those travelers or visitors that are a bit more price sensitive, really to think about, definitely you don't want to get into the discount game. I'm always very strong, vehemently opposed to discounting, unless it's it's done in a way that really can help you drive demand during low volume periods. But really to think about, how can you deliver more, maybe deliver more value, right? Or more, more incentive. So maybe build something in to the experience, or to the ticket, or through a membership or a subscription, that creates a sense of more value for the guest. But don't simply go to discounting, especially at a time like this, when we're all feeling pressure from the bottom, from the bottom up in terms of our balance sheets.
Great advice. And what you've described is exactly what we've been talking about as well, and what we've been hearing. So just before Christmas, I attended the heads of marketing meeting that Alva run, and Bernard Donahue talked through exactly the same scenarios that you just had. It is down to the experience. People will pay more, but they are looking for something that is outside of the ordinary now. So it's not just about come to the attraction, come to see this thing. It's what does that package look like? How can you exploit what you have in a more interesting way for the audience that are already going to come, but they'll probably spend more if you have this VIP package or this next level package, if we talk about a question for you. So we talked about the haves and the have not as much. So how did you define it? The haves and the haves?
The haves and the have-somes.
The haves and the have-somes. Yeah. Right, okay. So the haves and the have-somes. So where do you think this fits in terms of membership? Because that's been quite a big discussion topic recently, in that during the pandemic, membership sales went up phenomenally, astronomically, actually. So it was an altruistic purchase. You were doing what you could to support your favorite attraction while they couldn't open. What we're starting to see is a decline in people renewing memberships because of how nervous the cost of living crisis is making people. And the assumption that, and Bernard described this beautifully, is that previously, if you had a membership, so I have a membership to the National Trust, your previous mindset would be, oh, well, let's go to the local National Trust today because that's free. Because we've got our membership, we've already paid for that, and you wouldn't really think about the secondary spend. So you're going to buy lunch while you're there, or you might get something in the gift shop. Whereas now people are starting to go, well, that's not a free visit for us anymore. So we need to think about whether we go, what we spend while we're there. So maybe we take a packed lunch rather than we buy in the cafe, which is obviously then going to start to have a significant effect on the attraction itself. So yeah, I just wondered where you thought, how can organizations do better with their memberships to kind of help those people that maybe have them and are thinking about letting them go?
That's a really tough one, especially in this environment in the UK. And I think again it comes down to what more can you layer in, right, to really make it valuable. And so what kind of additional kind of benefits or perks or things can you expand to really tie that in? But that's something that I think really has to be addressed at the attraction level, and there's no way around this. You've got to understand your customer and who they are. Why did they become a member? What were the key drivers, and how can you keep that going? Like I can tell you, for us, like when our kids were younger, we were members of the zoo here in Atlanta. We were members of another museum, a local science museum that we would take the kids to on a regular basis. But as the kids aged out, we weren't going as much, right? And there wasn't a need, and their programming or their content was not compelling enough for us to stay with it. For example, now since they've actually introduced some things like at the Science Museum, like you can go to the observatory and they have cocktails under the stars at night and things like that, which might be a little bit more interesting for parents to still be involved. But so I think there's no, I think, blanket easy answer for the industry as a whole. That's something that you've really got to understand, your triggers and what do your guests really value the most about the membership, and what are things that you can do to really kind of leverage that to drive that engagement. But there's one thing too. I'm just going to throw out there. This is maybe more of a maybe a little bit more of a kind of an idea. I think could be I don't know if $1 million idea or $100 million idea within this sector. One of the businesses that has been there's a clear use case for travelers is that city attraction, pass, right? Where you come into a city and you can buy that pass, you can have access to so many attractions and you get so many visits over the course of 4 or 5 days or whatever the duration of the pass is that you purchase. But uh, another there's a missing I think business opportunity within the world of experiences, which is the equivalent of like a multi-attraction membership that and there's actually an interesting little startup based in New York called Sesame, which is doing something where you pay almost a negligible, I think it's like 15 or $20 a year, and you get access to opaque pricing to attractions all over the world. But even just something where you become, so I guess the corollary I think of is something like Class Pass in the US or Gym Pass, where you subscribe to the service and you can get access to gyms, all over the country, or to yoga classes or whatever it might be. And I think there's a huge opportunity for, some entrepreneurial startup to step in and aggregate, a lot of this content in a subscription or a membership service where you can do a zip line, in North Georgia, and then you can go to a National Trust experience somewhere in the UK, and then you can go, you can do this and you can do that, and to build that in, I think there's an incredible opportunity there for something like that, a multi-attraction subscription or membership service. Yeah, so I'm going to throw that out as my $100 billion idea for some listener to your podcast.
There you go, listeners. Who's gonna grab it and run with it? It's a really good idea. See, as you were speaking, I was just thinking we work with a number of attractions on the North Norfolk area, which is a lovely coastal area in the UK, and like a Norfolk pass for all of the attractions would be incredible because they're all within, an hour's drive of each other. So something like that could work really well for those regional areas. So yeah, all right, there you go. Norfolk attractions. What are you saying? Hit us up. Okay, let's talk about, you wrote a brilliant blog last September called The Future of Discovery in Travel. And it's about, thank you. Very welcome. It's excellent. And it's about the big shift in experiences, discovery and marketing. Now, so we know that marketing teams are stretched in attractions. They're normally on the small side and they're doing a million different jobs at once. We also know that they need a really clear strategy, and they also need to focus on the right time on the right channels for them to find where their existing audiences and where their new audiences are. And we've talked a little bit about, it's really vital at the moment to know exactly who your audiences are and where they are. This blog, you start off with a really great story about your son, and I wondered if you could just share the story about your son and sneakers. It's a great start and introduction to this.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to. So first, there's a paradigm within the travel industry. There's a phrase that's used quite a bit called the path to purchase. And there's a well-worn paradigm. It's almost accepted like gospel within the industry of, how a traveler goes about finding where they want to go, what they want to do, all of that stuff. And it's just, there was a study that I think was done maybe, 10, 12 years ago, that was sponsored by Expedia, that kind of walks through the path to purchase. You start on Google, you do a search, and then you statistically you visit 38 websites and across online travel agencies and review sites like TripAdvisor and whatnot, and from that you kind of figure out where you want to go, and then you go through the actual shopping phase. You do your flights and your accommodation, and then you get your things to do or experiences, which are often you're booking that the day of travel or before, very close in, or even while you're in destination. So that's the kind of well-worn, path of like Google to OTAs to booking sites, and boom, you're off. But I was just struck by something. So this happened actually earlier this year in the spring, where one day this package arrived at our house, and it was this pair of sneakers. It was like this $200 pair of sneakers that my 17-year-old bought. And I mean, first of all, I have no idea where he got $200 to buy that pair of sneakers, but that's a secondary issue. But then I was just curious. Oh, and they were a very, it was like a designer pair of sneakers, like a certain type of Nike or something, but it wasn't something maybe you'd go to a Nike store and find. I don't know, but then I just asked him, oh, how did you choose this pair of sneakers? Like, why? Like, how did you find it? And you have a teenage boy, they don't talk, right? They don't tell you anything, right? So that was like, I'm never going to find out the answer to that. But one of the things that I definitely know is I know how he didn't buy those sneakers. I know, he didn't go onto Google. I know he didn't visit 38 different sneaker websites to find, the best sneaker at the best price, the best time. Like, he didn't go through all of that process. Now, I mean, did he see somebody on TikTok or a friend of his on Instagram? I don't know. Was it a friend of his at school who was wearing the sneakers? I have no idea. But that paradigm of how people find and discover what they want to do, what they're going to do, is shifting dramatically, especially for that teenage, that Gen Z, and even the younger millennial set in a very extraordinary way. So in a great example, I was speaking to Dan Christian of Dharma, which is a tour company, who actually would be another great person for you to have on your podcast, by the way, who's very focused on the passion economy. And he had this quote that sticks in my head, which is, the tour happened to be in Costa Rica, which basically means increasingly younger people are connected to friends, they're connected to particular brands or experiences, or they're going to see something on TikTok or Instagram, and they're going to say, oh, I want to do that thing. And that is going to drive the whole path to purchase. And I want to do that thing. Oh, that thing happens to be in Costa Rica, or that happens to be in London, or whatever. Could be anywhere. But I want to do that thing with with those people. And by the way, it's not, I'll say too, you don't just take, I'm just a guy who runs an event and research company for attractions and experiences, but so don't take my word for it. I mean, just look at what Google has done. I mean, over the past year, they've completely and are continuing to revamp in particular, their mobile search experience. And a VP at Google made an extraordinary statement at a tech conference last summer, where he said, we are seeing 40% of Gen Z, they are turning not to Google, not to Maps or search to find like where to go or where to eat nearby. They're turning to Instagram. They're turning to TikTok. And it's amazing. When you ask these young people, and there was a great story in the New York Times about this, I think last August or September, where young people were saying, they're being asked to compare, let's say, a review of a restaurant on TikTok versus a Google review. And it's like, I don't have to read anything, because young people aren't reading. They don't have to think. Like they're saying, well, I don't have to think. I can just see the people at the restaurant. I can see them experiencing it. I can see myself in that. And that's the kind of experience I want to have. And that's all I need. And that's an extraordinary shift. So then I think the next question you would probably ask is, okay, so what does that mean for an attraction or an experience operator? How do you deal with that, right? Especially when budgets are stretched and your marketing team has already got too much to do.
You're suddenly asking them to take part and create short form video content, right? That's the bottom line. We know that is the future of this type of search. Yeah. That's a massive ask, isn't it? That's it seemed far more complex than sitting down and writing a blog article, for example. There's a lot more involvement in it.
I'm not asking him to do anything. I'm just simply saying, look, this is what's happening. And y'all can decide, what you want to do. That's up to you. But there is a profound profound shift that is underway. It's happening so quickly. It's hard to get your arms around. It's very hard to understand. Okay, well, do I suddenly stop? Do I suddenly stop spending my money on Facebook and Google and put everything into TikTok and Instagram? No, of course not, right? But because there's still intentional demand on those channels. But if you just and we detail all of this in the research and the reports too, that I mean, you can just very clearly see it. So in terms of where younger travelers are going to discover things to do, so TikTok has already surpassed Twitter, and I think for Gen Z, it's going to surpass Facebook within the next probably the next year or two, because we can already see Facebook is now like it's people my age, like it's Gen X and maybe older millennials, but it's really falling off for young folks. So but it's not an either or. And this is always the thing that, that kind of comes up. Oh, well, it's another channel. I mean, that's marketing. That's never going to change. Your marketing teams are always going to be strapped. They're always going to have too much to do. It's how are you going to work through that? So yes, you still have to do Google, you still have to do Facebook, you still have to do the photos on Instagram, but now you need to add reels, you need to add short form vertical video. And I would say you just begin by testing. And the best thing you can do, and there's so many great examples of this, is hire a young person who does this stuff, hire a 22-year-old who lives in this world and ask them to just start, creating stuff and give them some license and just to do things. And there's so much great guidance out there as well on that. And we've got some great content too. We had an influencer at our Vegas event, a guy named Ravi Roth, who is an influencer for LGBTQ travel in general, and he gave some incredible sessions on how to deliver authenticity through social content. And he's all like the number one thing, the next time you take a video, make sure it's vertical. Just everything has got to be vertical first and foremost, but just experiment and keep going and start to develop that muscle, because it will become very important. It already is very important.
So I had a couple of questions on this topic, and we've had, I have to say, we've had a couple of brilliant past podcast guests that have come on and talked to us about building great social community channels. We had Danielle Nichols and Ross Ballinger come on from Drayton Manor, which is a theme park based in the UK. So they talked a lot about how they had started their TikTok channel, and they've just got a really great kind of social community that they've been able to build, and it allows them to engage with their community, ask them for feedback, and in turn the community feels like they've got their back in decisions that have been made. So the theme park went through a rebrand process a little while ago, and they were really able to kind of engage with their audience because of the work that they put into it. Now I can totally see TikTok working for Drayton Manor, like even if they hadn't have done it already, I can see it because of the kind of level, because of the type of people that would go there, the thrill seekers, that kind of Gen Z. But where's the opportunity for the attraction sector that are very kind of family orientated? So I think about we think about the teen market that we've talked about. They're thinking about travel and experiences, potentially gap year, that kind of thing. But a lot of the attractions that we work with are really focused on that family marketing. So ultimately it's going to be the parents that are making those purchasing decisions. Is this still a channel that you think that there's opportunity for those kind of attractions?
Well, so fine, the parents might be ultimately paying for it, but where are the kids? The kids are on TikTok and Instagram. They're not on Facebook. So that's number one. And the best way to get families there is to get kids excited about something. So that's even more of a reason to be on there. And also something that we've seen as well across every social media channel. Well, maybe not everyone, but most certainly is it starts with kind of the younger, more digitally kind of switched on, generation, but very quickly becomes widely used across all generations, right? We've seen that in We saw that in Facebook. We've seen that we saw that in Instagram. We're seeing it in in Twitter as well. And the demographics for TikTok, as well, I think are, I'm sure, already rapidly, evolving to cut across a range of generations. That should definitely be a part of the family kind of marketing plan, and to try to reach, parents and show, in particular, kids having an amazing experience at your experiences is great. And by the way, those videos too, I point out as well, it's not just platform specific. Like, we use TikTok and Instagram. Well, that's what we're currently using as the language, or how we talk about this media format, because TikTok in particular has advanced this incredible idea of watching these 15, 30-second videos and then swiping up to the next one. But they've identified this extraordinary way to connect with people and make an experience, or access to information, really really extraordinary shift. And so I think we're going to see that basic principle of what they've learned be adopted by other platforms. So, for example, I think back in December, the news broke that Amazon was launching a TikTok-style video feed within the Amazon app, initially going to be in the US and a kind of a beta test. So you could actually do discovery shopping within Amazon in a TikTok style video feed. I mean, obviously Instagram is going all in with Reels. You've got on YouTube, you now have YouTube Shorts. And I've been noticing when I pop into YouTube every now and again that sometimes they're experimenting with defaulting to Shorts, as opposed to the more, the pull type of YouTube experience that they've done, that I think we're more accustomed to. I have also written about, and I'm kind of waiting for a travel platform, and really a travel experiences platform, to experiment with a TikTok style shopping experience on their website. Because, quite frankly, when I think about my 17-year-old in his sneakers, when when he takes his first vacation, right? Or, maybe when he goes off on his first college, spring break trip, with his friends, and let's say they go to the beach or something, and they're going to look for things to do. I mean, how is he going to find experiences, right? Like, is he going to go on to Google, or, Viator or Expedia, and say, oh, well, let me find fishing trips, or let me find this jet ski rental, or let me do this? Oh, I think he's going to be on Instagram, or one of his friends is going to be on TikTok, and they're going to say, oh, I see this experience of these guys on a boat doing this. Doesn't look like fun. Let's go find that, right? And that's going to drive the search and the booking. So I think that the model that TikTok is showing for all of us, I expect to see that replicated in some way. And I'm actually, in the experiences world and travel in general, I'm still pretty shocked that you don't have the widespread use of a video in the shopping experience. It's still very much like, oh, go in, there's the tour, there's all the inclusions, there's the exclusions, or I go onto an attraction site, or there's this ticket, and I can do this, and I can do that, and there's this, and I've got to read all this stuff. These guys, they don't want to read. They want to, oh, there's this experience, there's this attraction. Let me see myself in it. Oh, that's great. I don't give a shit about any of all the rules and all the things, and I have to be here at 10 and bring this. No, just show me this thing. Let's do it. That's the shift that I think has got to happen. And it's very common for product owners or marketers. Well, I've done all this work. I got to put all this detail out, but your customer doesn't, they don't care. They don't want to know about the sausage and how it's made and all the details. And
yeah, it's a bit like the tipping point when from like cookery books to cookery shows, isn't it? What's more engaging for someone? Like, I don't get me wrong, I've got a bookshelf full of cookery books out there, but actually show me someone making it, and show me the kind of sizzle, and show me that I'm going to engage with Kelly, that more.
I'm going to go even further, and I will tell you. So one of the things that I did over the pandemic was, since we were all cooped up, uh, and I just said, I'm going to learn to become, a better cook, right? Because it was mostly just, hamburgers and, pasta and sauce from a jar, right? Because both my wife and I were working and all crazy and whatnot. And I also, this was in 2020, early 2020, mid 2020. So I said, okay, and TikTok was really becoming a phenomenon. So I downloaded TikTok and I started using it. And one of the first things that popped up was uh, a recipe for Thai vegan lemongrass coconut pumpkin soup. And that's never anything I could have thought I would have been able to make. And it was a 30-second video. And it wasn't just like, it wasn't one of these, it wasn't like a detailed recipe or anything. It was just a video of the bowl, and you see the hands and there's like nice music in the background, and you just see everything that the person is doing. And there's a little text. This is what the ingredient is, then it's next. And so within 30 seconds, I watched this video and I'm like, oh, holy shit, I can do that. I can make that. And that looks really amazing. And so I went and made it, and it was amazing. And suddenly it was like, wait, I just watched a 30-second video. I could make something that was really what I thought in my mind would have been a real complex undertaking. And I think that's an extraordinary outcome from what, TikTok, I think, has shown from a communication standpoint, is how the genius and the possibility of delivering an extraordinary amount of information in a very short amount of time, but more importantly, making the viewer feel like they can relate to it, like they can participate. I can make that. I can make that soup. I can have that experience. That's the power of that, and no incredible tour description page or attraction description page with a list of inclusions and exclusions and all of this. And it's never going to be the same.
It's never going to be the same. A 30-second video has empowered you to be a better chef. I love that, Doug.
Well, there you go.
I want to talk a little bit about dynamic pricing. So we've been talking for ages, and I feel like we've covered loads today, but I think this is really important to talk about. So there's different pricing strategies for attractions at the moment.
Yeah.
So you've got the traditional kind of static price model where operators sell a ticket for the same price, no matter when that ticket is purchased or when it's going to be used. You've got variable pricing strategy, which might be based on the day it's purchased or the time slot for when the ticket's purchased, and each day is priced according to demand. I kind of like this approach. We had Simon Addison from Roman Baths come on and talk about their approach to this, and I find this approach quite empowering for the visitor, because it gives them the choice of when they're going to come, dependent on what they want to pay for that experience. But dynamic pricing is a strategy where attractions can adjust the prices of their offerings to account for changing demand. So, for instance, like an airline will shift seat prices based on seat type or the number of remaining seats and the time until the flight as well. Now, that's what some attractions do, but it's actually quite a small minority at the moment, isn't it? And I think are we seeing an uptake in dynamic prices, or are we still finding that it's just the big players that can actually use this strategy at the moment?
Yeah. Well, so first, from our surveying, it's less than 1% of attractions and operators are doing any type of dynamic pricing. And just to be very clear, the distinction between dynamic and variable. So, a variable is something like, okay, I'm going to have a different weekend price versus a weekday price, or a different price for a 9 a.m. entry on Monday versus a 3 p.m. entry on Saturday or something. But those prices stay the same over the course of the season or over the course of the year. Whereas dynamic, it's like, okay, it looks like my 3 o'clock slot on Saturday is nearly at capacity. We've only got 10% left. Let's increase the price by 5% or 7%. So there's still pretty low uptake, very low, less than 1%. However, we've also seen in our surveying, in terms of technical technology-related priorities, that is one of the, in fact, the top priority for visitor attractions heading into next year. Like I think it was 57%, so that they were looking at it very seriously and were quite interested, which is a really big,
yeah,
it's a really big deal. And so one piece to this is that, well, there are a lot of, there's a lot of complexities. So yes, there are a number of providers in the market, technology companies that are stepping in and offering this capability. These could be either, companies like, there's a company in the US called Diginex, which is basically, it's a layer on top of a ticketing system. There are other companies like Schmitz out of Switzerland, which is more of a ticketing system provider that has a dynamic pricing layer. And there's some other booking system providers like Ventrata and others that are layering in dynamic pricing within their booking system capability. But there's still some big issues that need to be, addressed within the space. I mean, one is there's still just a gap in just the fundamentals of the technology. Like you need to have a robust, a solid ticketing system and just control of your basic inventory and pricing. And once you have that, then we can start to think about, dynamic pricing. That's one. Then the next piece is, what are the signals or what are the triggers, right, to drive that. And it's going to vary a lot from attraction to attraction, but it could be things like weather, it can be things like, demand. There could be things like maybe, when, there's, the World Cup in Qatar and there's going to be increased demand for, a great attraction there, then you would want during that time when, the destination is going to be overflowing, you can increase your prices. So there's a lot of different kind of factors and inputs there. And there's a lot of debate about it. There's a lot of debate about it too. I think at a consumer level, there's that old thing of, well, you're sitting on the airplane and, the guy next to you spent half the price on the plane ticket, and does that, frustrate you? But I think increasingly consumers have come to understand this, and it's become pretty, commonplace. And I think people understand it. And I also think it's an opportunity for attractions to not just to make a little more money, but it's also to, as I said, I think at the outset, to provide a better guest experience. I think especially for tier one attractions and top destinations. I mean, that's got to be the top priority. How can you disperse your guests in a more effective way? Because there's no question. I mean, we had a little pandemic-induced hiatus from over tourism, but it's coming. It's already back in some places, fast and furious. Where and attractions are going to be very quickly overrun, especially when Asia really opens up and comes back. So how can you use smart pricing strategies to create a better guest experience, to have a better impact on your attraction and on the local community? I think it's not just about making money. So yeah, this is going to be a major theme within the sector over the next couple of years, and I would expect the industry to take it up pretty rapidly.
Yeah, I really like the definition of, putting your prices up actually gives the customer a better experience, because it comes down to, I guess it comes down to the operational factors again, isn't it? It's like, if you're going to be extremely busy for this period, you put your prices up, a touch, but that touch allows you to hire X amount more visitor experience people that can, greet your guests and give them that experience. So it still is all about the customer, which is really, really important.
And it can also, just one piece too, it can also potentially enable an attraction to lower prices during certain times, right? If you can yield up during certain times, you can make the attraction more accessible. Like it's not just about making more money. I mean, that certainly should be a benefit, right? But it's also can be about making your venue more accessible, about making the guest experience better.
Yeah, and I think that's the message that has to be driven to your audience as well, isn't it? Because otherwise it just feels a little bit unjust, but they're not being given the information to understand that actually this is a better decision for them. Doug, there's so much that we could talk about. We're out of time. We're basically out of time, but we always end our podcast by asking our guests to share a book that they love with us. Have you prepared for us today?
Yeah, well, yeah, I have. And actually, this is a book I recommend quite a bit. And it's not like a typical book because I know you've got, lots of great recommendations and there's lots of amazing business books out there. But one of the books that has always stuck with me, it's a service manual. It's called Delivering Knock Your Socks Off Customer Service. And it's a short paperback. I think it's like 109 pages or even less. And it was written as a manual for customer service teams, but actually, as I read it, it struck me as basically it's a guide for being a great human being and how to treat people in an extraordinary way and how to respond to questions when you don't know the answer, how to make people feel like you care about them. And one of the things my wife has always said is people never remember what you say, really. I mean, they remember how you made them feel. And so to me, that book it's a guidepost to leaving people feel like you matter, like they matter to you, and that you're going to serve them well. And that also ties into your brand. Like everyone is their own personal brand, and every action that you have with every person is a reflection of that brand. So that book impacted me in that way, and I've always kind of thought about it as a way to be a guidepost for how I interact with everybody. Not just with my customers or clients or our event partners or our employees, with my friends, with my family, with everybody.
Doug, that is a book that is right up my street, and that's going to go top of my pile. And I'm going to buy it. I think I'm going to buy it for my team as well.
Highly recommended.
As ever, listeners, if you want to win a copy of Doug's book, then if you head over to our Twitter account and you retweet this episode announcement with the words, "I want Doug's book," then we will enter you into a draw to potentially win it. Doug, thank you. You'll have to come back on because there's so many other topics that we could have covered. Come back in 2024 and we'll see how some of these predictions and things that we've talked about have worked out this year. But thank you. It's been lovely to chat.
Hey, can I just quickly close with, can I do a very small shameless plug?
Go on then. Okay? Go on then.
Well, just for all of those attractions who are listening, we have our Arival Berlin conference right before ITB, March 5, 6, and 7 in Berlin at the amazing Estrella Hotel, where all of the things that Kelly has been bugging me about over the past, what has it been, 45 minutes or an hour or so. We have a couple of days just devoted to all of these topics in the world of experiences and the future, and we've got speakers from Google and Get Your Guide and and actually the MoCo Museum, which is all in on dynamic pricing, by the way, and they're going to be leading an in-depth workshop on what they're doing, and among so much else on distribution and growth. And you're going to meet a lot of incredible experience operators and attractions and distributors and technology providers. It's really, for us, it's our vision to create the hub of the experiences sector for travel and to help this industry grow and improve. So, and Kelly's going to be there.
I was going to say, Doug, right? The highlight of it is that I'll be there speaking as well.
That's right, which we're really looking forward to. So, so please do consider joining us. We promise you're going to have an amazing time with an amazing community and, learn tons. So
it's a great lineup of speakers, and it really does look like an absolutely incredible conference. We'll put all the details in the show notes, so none of you will miss out, and you'll be able to book online. And even if you don't make the conference, go and check out the Arival website, because some of the reporting on there is really phenomenal and so valuable to the sector. And I've learned a lot in the last couple of weeks just reading through some of the reports that Doug's been able to send me through. So that is well worth a visit, everyone. Doug, thank you. It's been fabulous.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks for listening to Skip the Queue. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It really helps others find us. And remember to follow us on Twitter for your chance to win the books that have been mentioned. Skip the Queue is brought to you by Rubber Cheese, a digital agency that builds remarkable systems and websites for attractions that helps them increase their visitor numbers. You can find show notes and transcriptions from this episode and more over on our website, rubbercheese.com/podcast.